Hello and welcome back to Quicks14Blog. We're at the Addon special part 7 now with wonderful Auctioneer and AutoProfit X. So let's get right into it. Auctioneer is a huge utility, so I'm not going to be able to go over everything here. I could devote parts to just Auctioneer by itself, talking about Auctioneer, but we're not going to do that here. I'm going to give you a brief overview of some of the default options, as you can see here. There's two ways to bring up your Auctioneer profits. You can just go to the auction house, open up your auction window, and there will be an options button, or you'll have a little slide bar here on the very far right corner towards your mini-map that if you put your mouse all the way to that side, if you keep it on the edge of the screen, it'll pop up and then you can go over and open it. There's tons of modules here, tons of stuff to go over. Auctioneer is account-wide. You can change that to make it specific to each player. It's important to note about that. There's tons of options here. We're looking at the total Auctioneer suite, even though there's different pieces of Auctioneer you can get, including Auctioneer Simple, which is just a simple little format of Auctioneer, the Enchantrix, which just deals with enchanting, and many other options. Now there's other great options out there besides just Auctioneer, but Auctioneer is by far the most stable, the most powerful, and most in-depth Auctioneer thing you're going to find that does tons of stuff. So I highly suggest it. But it can be very intimidating for people who have never used it before. There's many different options. Bean counter is very useful. I tried to show it to you here, but unfortunately it didn't quite work. The idea is it'll keep track of how you're selling and buying stuff and things like that, so you can see how much gold you've lost or gained by doing so. It helps you keep track of how your auctions are going, basically. When you get something back and you want to see how successful auctioning that item was, this will kind of give you an idea how it works. I didn't quite get it working there, but we'll look at it again later. Enchantrix has to do with enchanting. Obviously I don't have an enchanting on this character, so it's not applicable. We're not going to go over it very much. Gatherer has to do with gatherer. We're not going over that much anyway. An information gatherer, the auction search UI, and of course the swatter, which is an air and more advanced air information. So let's actually open up the auction window. You're going to see plenty of new stuff if you've never have before. The scan button and the scanned play button is probably the most important. Flash global scan is only for computers who are fairly powerful and have a lot of memory, so I would suggest that if you don't know what it is, leave it alone. But the play button for scanning and the scan button is definitely the most important buttons that you're going to find. When you start out with Auctioneer, the first thing you really want to do is scan. You can see the bean counter also has its own tab there. The search UI, which will help you with finding low things to buy or items you want, and the appraiser tab, which is my favorite. Now a lot of people use the standard auctions button to put auctions up. I prefer to use appraiser because of this reason right here. You can click an item and it has all the items in your inventory, which you can do for auction. You have all the options with it, but the wonderful thing is at a glance you can refresh it and actually see what it is on the auction house right now for that item. This is also great for finding quick and easy items to buy, like my mana potions and more, and this gives me at a glance about how auctions are doing. Now it's important to remember that each auction house type, Alliance, Horde, and Neutral, are kept in their own database. They do not crisscross. So it's very important you remember that. This will come in handy. If you have on a PvE server and you have access to Horde characters, create one. If you want to get the most out of your auction house, do it. So you can scan the Horde auction house. Why? Because if you've got items on the Alliance side that are just totally overdone, there's just too many and there's too much, especially on our server this is true, you can throw it on the neutral auction house for a price that would probably be much lower than the Horde's ones. So I would suggest you do it. You'd be surprised how many people actually use this and actually keep track of it. So do not forget the neutral auction house. The appraiser tab is by far my favorite and most powerful. If I am right, appraiser only comes in Auctioneer Suite. It's an advanced feature because there's a lot to it, and it can look very intimidating, but it's actually quite simple. Just simply select the item from your inventory. You can click on it, refresh it to see the auctions on there, set its bid and its buy item, set its price type. You You can set it for batch posting, so you can do multiple batches at once, which is probably my favorite feature. You can set up its stack size. It has one, how many of in your inventory you want up there, and have the duration. You can also see at a glance about things. You can also take a look at the auctions that are on the auction house. So if you got items on the auction house and they don't seem to be selling as fast as you think they are, click the Show Auctions checkbox at the top. It'll show all your items that are on auction. You can look at it and see, and then rescan it with refresh to see if you're being undercutted and whatnot. So you can adjust your prices accordingly. Very handy feature. Of course, all the price models, I'm not going to go into those in detail. There is help files, there's tutorial files, there's tons of resources and tons of other videos out there talking about auctions. So if you need help, go to that. I did not go through in depth the search option for buying out stuff or underbidding stuff. You will find that more later. As you can see, you can set up tons of tooltip options, so you can look at items at a glance to get an idea of their price range on Auctioneer, their enchant price, and so on. The most important thing that you're going to look for in anything is the seen. How many times it's been seen. It says seen, whatever. That's something you need to keep an eye on. That means that's how many times it's actually been physically seen in your scan. So you're going to be scanning quite a bit because you have no things, so I would suggest you do that. As you can see, I have some expired auctions, and I have one sell. So we're going to pick up the expired auctions first. We're going to keep the sell for auction, our next part. And now I can bring up Bean Counter, take that item and drop it. And now I can get a full idea. As you can see, I've had 2 expired auctions, but I still have a profit from my original sell. So I'm still at a profit gain. It's great for letting you see at a glance how much you do that. So you can not do auctions and actually just lose completely and totally lose money. All the stats are there at a glance. You can see who bought it, how much, and so forth. There are other things that also keep track of this if you don't want to use Auctioneer Suite, because I believe that's another part of Bean Counter is part of Auctioneer Suite as well, not Auctioneer Simple. As you can see there, I've actually lost some gold. Now in this case, I've only lost 2 gold, 68 silver, but I can vendor it for 4 gold, 47 silver, so I can still put it up for auction one more time before I'm actually at a small loss, and then I can sell it if it doesn't sell, and go ahead and just take a very, very little loss on it. Not a big deal. So I use Bean Counter quite extensively to help me with that. Auction-Profit is another thing we're going to look at here in just a moment, and that's something that kind of does the same thing. It's just a cute little thing I like to keep track of. You can see here, now that we have it up there, we're going to refresh to get the most update, because my auction scan is a little old, so we can get the latest prices, have our prices, and we're going to adjust it accordingly. We're going to go ahead and price match it. As you can still see, it does it by the 100% ratio because you're trying to get the most money, but there's still a lot of undercuts. So I'm going to manually edit it. Now it's undercutting, basically. I have it set for batch posting. Again, we're going to refresh. As you can see, things are still going there, so we're going to go ahead and adjust the price accordingly again. Make it 110 and 100. And we have that all set up, and we're going to set that for batch posting. Once we have it set for batch posting, you're going to Control Shift Alt and then click, and it'll post everything that's been clicked like that. And that's it. You can see we have a sell, and there they are. Right back on the auction house, and how much for. So that's Auctioneer pretty much at a glance. A lot more to it, a lot more in depth. There's lots of other tutorials out there, and of course it has lots of help files. Find the one that's right for you. Memory is going to be a big factor here. The less memory, not hard drive space, but actual RAM that you have, I would suggest you get Auction Simple. If you have more actual RAM, then go ahead and get the full suite. Next thing I want to look at is Auction-Profit. You probably saw this a lot in my how to make money, how to make good money farming as easy as level 70. This is Auction-Profit X, or Auction-Profit. It's a very cool utility. Keeps track of all your sales. Now it's very important that you actually have to open the item in your mail. You can't just Control Shift it to auto open. You actually have to physically open it in order for it to count. It's the way the add-on works. It'll keep track of all your buyers, of all the auctions, of all your items. What's cool is you can also set up a tooltip, so when you're going around and you mouse something over someone, you can see how much they bought stuff. Now what's the usefulness of this? A lot of people especially profession people, might see a big use for this if they see a pattern of people buying stuff from them, like disenchanters, or maybe food, or maybe alchemy stuff, things like that. If you see a big pattern of people doing that, maybe go ahead and give them a tell, a whisper, and say, hey, I noticed you've been buying a lot from me. Would you like me to set up like a bulk order deal or whatever? Because the more, if you have a foundation customer like that, which is pretty consistent, you can make good money that way. So that's pretty much it for this part. Coming up in part 8, Outfitter. Wonderful outfitter, elk, buff bars, and fishing buddy coming up at you. Very cool stuff here. Outfitter is important. If you use the equipment manager in WoW, you're going to see how much better Outfitter is. And so stay tuned for all that coming up next.